Hey, leaders. Welcome back to the Happy Leader Podcast, your weekly feeding for happy leading. And I'm really glad you joined us this week because we're talking about one of the most essential leadership skills that you will ever develop. It's not based on your title, not based on your position. It has nothing to do with the authority that the organization gives you in your positions, but it is about influence and how you have leadership through your influence. So, if you have ever found yourself thinking, how do I move things forward in my organization or where I sit in this, whatever hierarchy you're in, and you're not the final decision maker, or you're wondering, how do I lead well in this organization with all these layered systems embedded in it? Then this episode is for you because in complex organizations, whether you're in government, corporate America, self employment, education, the military, you name it, leadership happens, but it doesn't only happen through hierarchy and command. It oftentimes happens through connection and through credibility, trust, and the topic of this conversation is leadership through influence. So I'm going to give an access point for us to talk about this, and it's rooted in an article. And so I want to be sure to give credit where it's due. And this episode was inspired in part by a really good article that I came across in Medium, and it's by Jordan Imutan. I believe that's how you say it. And it's entitled Mastering the Art of Influence: How Middle Managers Can Navigate Complex Relationships. And it's to me, it's a really thoughtful look at what it means to lead from the middle tier of an organization and how influence is often the true engine of progress. So I'll be sure to link that article in this episode description because I think reading it is totally worth your time and you can get some good nuggets from it. I want to talk with us today about the three directions of influence. So and I pulled one from the article I just mentioned. So one of the most helpful frameworks from the article is this: middle leaders are expected to influence in three directions. They are influencing down, they're influencing across, and they're influencing up. And I want to walk you through each of these one by one because this is where leadership becomes really real, especially for people who don't sit at the top of the organization. You're not the person making the yes and no decisions in your organization, but you are still leading. So, the first level of influence that I want us to understand is influencing down. So, this is a foundational, to me, a part of leading. So, early in my leadership journey, I understood this part extremely clearly. My role was to guide people, to develop teams, to communicate expectations, and to create trust and clarity. So influencing down is, as I mentioned, foundational to most leadership experiences. This is the stage where you learn how to motivate, how to coach, how to bring people forward, and to build that core foundation of how you're going to lead the rest of your way. And just like most other leaders, I grasped that concept pretty easily. The other part is influencing across. So the second stage of influence we're going to talk about is what's called peer leadership. So for me, as I moved into roles where my peers had responsibility and influence in the areas that intersected with mine, I realized something else. Leadership is not just vertical. It is not only top down, it is a horizontal plane to this. So peer influence matters because your peers are not your subordinates. You can't just tell your peers things to do and they go get after it. Your peers are what I call essential partners, and you don't lead peers with authority because you all share a common authority most times. You lead peers through alignment, relationship, and definitely mutual respect. And that's where collaboration becomes the real leadership skill, and it's not just a personality trait. The third level of leadership through influence is influencing up. So, this is the part that took me the longest to fully understand and embrace, especially being a part of the hierarchical organization. It's influencing up. At first, I understood leadership meant to receive the direction from the top and execute it very well, minus, some inputs here or there. And definitely, yes, execution matters. But at a certain point, I realized as a leader in this organization, I'm not only expected to carry out decisions, I'm expected to help shape these decisions. And that was a mindset shift for me. Influencing up meant learning creative ways to contribute to the decisions before they came down to me for execution. It meant moving from responding to engaging early and earlier. It meant offering solutions. It meant that I had to become really good at communicating what was happening at my level in a way that the leaders above me could receive, and to do all of that so that I could make better informed decisions, a decision space for the leaders above me. Now, that's a different kind of leadership maturity, and it's one of the most important growth points in your leadership, and it was in my leadership. Why influence is not optional when you're leading. You definitely have to lead through influence, especially when you're not the person at the top. So in the article I mentioned, there's a point that they talk through where influence really breaks down. It breaks down when organizations experience misalignment, miscommunication, lower morale, stalled productivity, and I've seen it. Influence through leadership through influence is not optional. It really is an organizational multiplier, and for you as the leader, it's a leadership multiplier. So I want to give us 5 practical ways to build influence. Now, I could give lots of ways, but we're going to stick to 5 for the sake of this conversation right now. So, how do you build influence, especially I'm talking to especially the people who are in the middle? Here's 5 leadership practices that have worked for me and that I teach others to implement. So the first one seems pretty obvious, but it's to build trust before you need it. Influence, as with many things in leadership, starts with trust. So don't wait until you need the support in order to build the relationships. Trust is built in very small moments, like little drops in a bucket, and it's built on consistency. Number 2 is to speak the language of the mission that you're trying to influence. When influencing up, frame your ideas in terms of organizational priorities. Most leaders will respond to alignment and they really want to respond a lot to your opinion because that's not why you're there. The third thing I want to offer us is to practice emotional intelligence. Influence is not just logical, it's emotional. And as many leaders that I follow say, all the decisions that leaders make are emotional. People need to feel understood before they feel persuaded. And emotional intelligence is a part of strategic leadership. Number 4, as always, lead with humility but confidence. The best influencers are not arrogant, but they're really grounded. They're confident enough to contribute, yet humble enough to listen. And that balance will create a powerhouse for you to be able to influence no matter where you fall within the organization. And the last one is ask for feedback and adapt. Influence grows through reflection. You can ask questions to those who you're wanting to influence, like, how does my leadership style land here? What do others need from me? Influence is a skill you develop, it's not a trait you're born with. Although we can argue that leaders are born or made, influence is definitely neither. It's not something you are born with, it's something you work at and hopefully perfect. So here's my question for you today, leaders. Where are you being called to grow in your realms of influence? Is it influencing down to better develop your people? Is it influencing across to partner better with your peers? Or is it influencing up to help shape decisions before they funnel down and arrive to you and your team? Because leadership is not about where you're positioned in the organization, it's about how you can influence the organization. I would really love to hear from y'all in the comments. I pose this question: what's one moment where you realized your influence mattered more than authority? Or a time where you've learned to better influence your organization effectively by leveraging the things that I've talked about here? I do want y'all to go check out that article from Jordan Imutan because it's full of a lot of rich information, especially for middle management. So let's agree that as leaders, there is a requirement for us to have a tri-directional leadership focus. We have to lead up and influence those that are above us in the organization. We have to lead out to those who we are peers with, and we have to lead down to those that are looking to us for leadership. And neither of those are without their challenges. But once you master all three parts of those, you will be a trifecta of leadership influence. If this episode resonated with you, if it helped you at all, then I ask you to share it, subscribe to Happy Leader Podcast, and post about it. Let's talk about it. And as I mentioned, post in the comments. Let's talk through what it is that stood out to you in this episode. I look forward to us getting together again next week. And until then, happy leading.